Hello, and we are live. You are all very welcome to today's session. I am your host, as ever, Gerard Adlum from Payslip, and today we are looking at Workday's Global Payroll Connect, and in particular, data changes on demand. To unpack all of this, what it is and why it matters, I'm delighted to be joined by three product experts in their own right. Joanna Solawa, Senior Product Manager in Workday on Team Global Payroll Connect, and a member of Workday since 2020. Hi, Joanna. Nice to have you with us.
Hello, nice to see you.
And then, of course, Stefana Shishkova from Payslip, Senior Product Manager, focusing on all things integrations and automation. Hey, Steph.
Hey Gerard, nice to see you all.
And of course, the lovely Andrew Hughes, last but by no means least, Solutions Consultant here at Payslip, who will be taking us on a live demo of data changes on demand a little bit later on. In the meantime, in the comments, I'd love to know where everyone is joining us from. The four of us hosting this webinar, we're from all different parts across Europe. Myself and Andrew are dialing in from Ireland, Steph from Bulgaria, Joanna from Poland. So yeah, you in the comments, where are you dialing in from? It is, after all, Global Payroll Connect, so nice to see if we've got a presence around the globe. But with all of that said, Joanna, I'm going to hand it over to you to tell us a little bit about what Global Payroll Connect actually is, because there's been a little bit of hype and a little bit of talk about it, particularly over the last few months. So why don't you tell us what it is before we focus on data changes on demand in particular?
Yes, of course. I will start by thank you for inviting me. I'm really happy that I will be able to share a couple of details about Global Payroll Connect. What it is, Global Payroll Connect from Workday is a set of features, and the set of features which main goal is to provide a seamless experience for our customers using payroll, both those who are using native payroll and those that are using third-party payroll, to have an impression of really having just one system, not a number of systems. So, for example, if for native payroll we have payslips, then if you are using third-party payroll, you should be seeing payslips from other systems as well. If you have external payroll results which are getting loaded, and you can have some additional reporting in Workday when you're using native payroll, then probably you would like also to use them when you are having a payroll on the third-party system. So this is what Global Payroll Connect brings. Technically, it's a set of REST APIs which allow us to connect Workday with other systems, third-party systems, to provide the seamless experience of payroll, both for native payrolls and those customers who, for some reason, are not able to use native payroll, for instance, just because of the country that they are using, that they calculate payroll for, does not have this native payroll solution at Workday.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of an overview of it. And in particular, I suppose we wanted to highlight that there are, in fact, five different core features, and new functionality and features are being added all the time. And actually, at the end of this session, Joanna's going to take us through the roadmap. But just to call out that there's five core features: data changes on demand, additional payroll data, external payroll documents, external payroll results, and the global payroll hub. Each of them are really interesting and unique features in their own right. But today we're just going to focus on this first one: data changes on demand. What's also worth noting is that if you are looking to avail of GPC and all of these features, you need a bridging partner or an integration partner, if you like, in order to connect your Workday tenant with those payroll providers. And that is where a provider like Payslip comes into play. And one thing that's again worth noting, Payslip is the vendor agnostic partner for Global Payroll Connect. In other words, if you like the vendors that you currently work with, you have no desire to make any changes to them, you can avail of all of the features that we're going to talk about, including data changes on demand, without needing to make a change to your vendors and your setup. So that's really important if you want to maintain that level of freedom and choice. And again, that's something that Maggie, who's been instrumental, of course, a lady well known to yourself, Joanna, has been instrumental in building out GPC, but it's one thing that she noted about our partnership was that it allows you that flexibility and choice. So with all of that said, and I'm sure the questions will come in as we go along for more details, what is data changes on demand and where does it sit in the context of Global Payroll Connect?
Yes, a very good question. Data changes on demand is a new feature that will be now existing in parallel with the features that some of you may already know, like PECI, the Payroll Effective Change Interface. Both of them, the purpose of both of them is to retrieve the data from Workday, the data which is payroll relevant, and send this data to the third-party system. Now, unlike PECI, the Payroll Effective Change Interface, which is file-based, which is a file-based integration, DCoD is an API-based integration, which means that the ownership is shifted to the vendor side. So while for PECI, the setup has to be done on the Workday side, and then the file with the data and the changes related to the workers is sent to the third-party systems. In DCoD, the request is coming from the vendor, and the vendor can request this data dynamically whenever they want, how they want. They can request only certain workers, certain pay groups, certain data ranges. So with this particular use case, they are gaining more flexibility. So yes, with DCoD, we are now moving to an API-driven approach.
Okay. So I suppose in that sense, if I were to summarize in some way, it is that more modern approach to the solution that PECI was offering. It's all about ensuring that you have the most up-to-date, accurate data from your Workday HCM for payroll work, basically. It's making sure that the data is up to date.
Yes, exactly. And there are some differences as well. Like, for instance, the data that is sent is a raw data. So we are moving away from any business interpretation that has been done previously with, for instance, staffing events that we could see for PECI. Now we are sending raw data, and the customer actually a vendor can interpret the data based on their needs.
Gotcha. So I suppose you've put together, I suppose, three kind of key areas in which you guys at Workday are foreseeing the value of DCoD. And again, these are sort of three high-level benefits that you guys have outlined.
Yes, of course. So the reason why we wanted to shift to the API-based approach was to accelerate the deployments for our customer, the ownership, the time required for the deployment could be shortened. That was one of the benefits. Another was to achieve higher flexibility, to allow our vendors to request whenever they want and which data exactly they need. And move away from the file-based transfer and change it to the API-based approach.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if you could see there, I was having some technical issues on my side. My laptop suddenly decided to stop cooperating, but I hope too much didn't get lost. But anyway, there's an overview. Again, as we always say, the deck will be circulated after the fact. So if my laptop did obstruct you from seeing the full benefit of what Joanna was talking about, don't worry, you'll have that sent to your inbox. Okay, so then I suppose a technical level, and again, we don't want to get too lost in the weeds, Joanna, as to what the differences are between DCoD and PECI, but you've kind of talked through some of them there already. But at a technical level, these are some of the details or the differences that you guys have identified.
Yes, a very, very short summary of the differences and varieties. Of course, there is more, but there's some sneak peek. DCoD is, of course, a REST API, while PECI, the previous solution, which is, of course, still existing and will be existing in the parallel, is the file-based approach. They both require grid. You will have a DCoD, a JSON file in DCoD. In PECI, that was an XML. Both are effective stack, which means that you get the full list of changes from the last successful run date until now. Unlike PECOF, this is also one of the types of integrations where we could only see the difference between what was previously sent and what is now. We currently have the limit of 50,000, which maybe in future will grow, but for now we don't see the need for that. And the main difference definitely will be about the schedule and the maintenance, which is now owned by our vendors, while previously with PECI it was done directly in Workday.
Gotcha. So with all of that in mind, Steffi, you've been hugely influential and involved in some of the implementations that have been going on then at a customer level and actually bringing this to life to people. So at that high level, what are the differences that you have seen in terms of the implementation of PECI versus DCoD? Because I think, again, this is really where the rubber meets the road, as we say in Ireland. This is what's important to people in terms of, not just buying it, but actually implementing it and feeling the benefit of it.
Yeah, thank you, Gerard. So with everything what Joanna just explained about the differences in the technicalities between PECI and DCoD, I would like to explain a bit more in terms of a Payslip perspective and how this is, what are the main differences here. Of course, we cannot skip the fact that the DCoD is the more robust integration and is the one that takes less time. Why is that? So the main reason, as Joanna mentioned, is that we are owning the maintenance of the integration, while what is happening currently from process perspective, very briefly with a PECI, is that you as a client are owning the PECI configuration on Workday side, so that the way that this PECI file gets built, it's you who is configuring which sections of the employee profile to go, what fields, what data, do you have everything there, how you're communicating that to your payroll provider. And then in terms of Payslip, when this configuration is done on your tenant, on your site with your own tests, then you're providing us with the PECI file. From there, Payslip takes the PECI file, understands it, interprets it, make a configuration, which is a second configuration, so that we can import this data into the Payslip system. While with the DCoD, the only configuration that you need to do on the Workday side is that you create an integration system user so that we can connect to your tenant. We're getting the data and we already know how to read and understand employee data from the PECI file. What we have also, and is also lowering the time for configuration, is that we have enough experience knowing what is the type of data that actually you need for payroll processing in terms of employee data. What are the main items that you need? And we do understand Payslip system, of course, and we have a configuration that is working in, I would say, with 99% of the cases for the basic employee data. For every customer, we know that there are differences, and mainly those differences appear on the compensation elements, benefits, leave of absence. These are very custom things that you're doing on your tenant setup, and they cannot be replicated because every customer has different needs. So this is the only exercise that we're doing in terms of mapping and understanding. So first analysis and then mapping to the Payslip system. But that's, let's say, half of the work. And the other part that before was taking more time to analyze, to make sure that is there, and to get it, if it's missing in the PECI, to make sure that you are adding it on your site. All of this jazz is just removed from you as a hassle, respectively from Payslip. So the maintenance and then the testing is much lower than with the PECI. Of course, we're not saying don't use PECI. We're saying use whatever fits your organization. But when we're talking about time saving, we cannot skip the part of the cost. So when the time gets lower, the price gets lower. Like that's kind of how business works, and that's quite natural to be like that. And with this set in mind, we are currently in implementation mode for 9 customers, and in total we have 58 payrolls that are currently in implementation mode. And the surprising moment for me was, I was thinking at the start when we implemented data changes on demand that we will be looking into any new customer implementation, like a new customer, new onboarding, new country, anything like that. But actually, out of those 9 customers, 6 are existing customers that are PECI users or don't have PECI for certain reasons, which we'll look at in the business cases we're going to look at in a few minutes. What I was trying to say is that people are looking into the scalability of this integration, because PECI is something that requires investment, not only like money, time type of investment, but also different people that need to maintain it, to understand it, to know how to configure it, then to support it, then all of these small pieces that are related to human interaction. They are sometimes the decision is, well, we are not doing PECI for all of our countries, but we're doing PECI for, let's say, the top 5 countries or top 10 countries that we have. And the rest of the countries that have a smaller headcount, we just do it manually because it's not cost effective. So if we go to the business case number 1, we will be looking into exactly those types of customers, because they have, I'll give you an example with a customer that has 28 countries and they have a PECI for 15, and the rest, they just decided that, well, I have 5 people here, I have 11 people here, I don't want to bother with the PECI to go through all those tests and all this hassle to make sure that it's working for every country. So they came to us after we introduced data changes on demand and said, okay, will data changes on demand be faster, quicker, and will it take less time for implementation? Because we want to automate those countries as well and the data transfer. And we said yes. And in one batch, we managed to implement all of the countries, because it's much quicker and much easier, and the customer understands how Payslip also works. So for the long tail countries, for less cost, we've managed to automate processes that were left behind just because the investment was not worthy before with the PECI. So if we're looking into a business case number 2, we're going to look into some other customers that are Workday customers, but decided that they don't want to invest in PECI up until now for certain reasons, different types of reasons. But now the most important reason that they have decided not to go with the PECI is because when you're buying PECI, you're saying, okay, if I need to have as much as possible data in Workday so that it's worth the investment and all this hassle with the configurations, integrations, testing. And now with the data changes on demand, those type of customers that don't have their compensation elements, let's say, in Workday, they don't have now time to invest in a project where they can put all the benefits, the compensation elements, the leave of absence, the time tracking, all of those types of data that are somewhere outside of Workday, currently stored for different reasons. They decided that data changes on demand is actually their solution, at least for the basic employee data, which is related to demographical details, job and org data. This type of data is always needed for payroll processing, and it's part of the automation which data changes on demand provides, without the additional hassle of trying to justify the cost for some integration and waiting to have everything until to move to automation. So we are very glad that we have a couple of those types of clients that we are currently implementing. They're long-standing customers on the Payslip database, but they never had an automation on the HCM side, and currently they're actually using data changes on demand to bring all of this data, and their payroll people are no longer needed to manually create employees or pass data to the payroll provider.
Great.
And yeah, if we move to business case number 3, now that's something that data changes on demand is actually providing you to do as a scale. So what I mean here, payslips back to Workday. So different customers have different problems to solve. And for me, this is the key thing that you need to decide as a customer, like what's my biggest problem that I want to solve, and then start thinking of which are the actual solutions that are solving my biggest problem. And if you list 10 problems and you say, okay, this one is too big to start with solving, we can still bring value by solving small problems, like providing a unified experience for your employees across the globe, like with payslips going back to Workday. So that's a very simple integration. And why is it sitting with the data changes on demand? Because from payslip perspective, the integration has two parts. Number one, our own integration, which is reading. Imagine your payroll provider is uploading one file with 1,000 payslips. What payslips integration is doing is reviewing those payslips, validating them, splitting them per employee, and putting an ID number so that we can locate those specific items to a specific employee. And to do that, we need three simple things. We need the employee ID and we need the names. And in some cases, the tax number as an additional validation if required. And before, we had customers that were using payslips, but they had to manually bring this type of data, make sure that all the joiners are into payslip, all the leavers are recorded as such on the payslip platform. Now, with data changes on demand, we just make a call and take those three items, like names and ID, so that the integration, which is solving one type of problem, is actually working without the need of someone making sure that all those employees are in payslip.
Amazing. So those are just three examples, and I know, Joanna, from Workday's perspective, there's plenty of other use cases that you guys have earmarked as well. But I guess if we can, summarize at this stage the high level benefits that we have seen in terms of our own implementations. It's a faster implementation. It requires less time, certainly less time of you, the customer. It puts the burden on the vendor, which is true of all the GPC partners. Certainly from our perspective, it also hits, I suppose, the trifecta of it also being more cost efficient for you, the customer, as well. And that's what we've seen already in the market. There's been a couple of questions that have come in, and now might be a good time to take some of them. Let me just see here. I know Gagandeep, Joanna, asked us if DCoD is something specific to Payslip or if it's something which Workday provides and can be configured to a global vendor which currently receives PECI files from Workday. There's a very simple answer to this, Joanna.
Yeah, so DCoD is not specific to payslips. There is a number of certified vendors and a couple of vendors still getting certified. So the customer can choose whichever they want from the list of certified vendors.
Yeah. And then Julie asks, she makes a point here, and I suppose this gets into the weeds of the different use cases and the different ways in which you could use both PECI and DCoD. But Julie asks that her HR team wants to use SFTP or PECI files for HCM data and possibly DCoD for time and attendance. So she's asking, would that use case or that way of working it, would that be a viable option?
Well, we would have to verify the specific use case because in general, we should be using rather one PG integration for all the data for a certain pay group. And if this is a different pay group, then we could use a different integration. So this definitely specific use case would have to be evaluated by some consultant.
Gotcha.
If I may take the answer of this question from the payslip perspective, if you don't mind, of course, we have a use case for a customer where we are using both PECI and DCoD at the same time. It's a bit weird, and as Joanna says, it's not very recommended to be done, but it's not impossible to be done, is what I'm trying to say. Because at the end of the day, it's important to know which is the more scalable solution and which is the solution that is going to provide you less problems. So So in this case, if the pitch is going to one of the vendors and the DCoD is used for time tracking to another vendor, I don't see quite of a problem doing that, because both integrations work in absolutely separate universe, let's say, and each one of them has its own counting of last successful run so that you can get the specific data for the specific integration. So we've tested it not with time off and time tracking, with other sections, and that's why probably Joanna says that we will need to test it more, but absolutely at the moment it's proving that you can use both for one pay group, but we also don't recommend it, because you can mess a bit sometime, or it's two integrations supporting two different configurations. Like, it's not always optimal.
Well, there you go, Julie. Yeah, it's one of those things, I suppose, where the technology exists, but it all comes down to individual use cases. And look, like you've done there, Julie, it's always better to ask the questions and tease out whether something is viable, because sometimes there's workarounds. But again, as the guys say, it may not necessarily technically be the most economic solution either, or the most, the most beneficial. And then lastly, from Gabriella, just asks, is there a maintenance fee associated to the integration? But I think, Joanna, it's already included in the GPC SKU, isn't it?
If you have the GPC SKU, then the maintenance fee is included. It's just the GPC SKU.
Yeah, perfect. Look, keep the questions coming in. With that said, Steffi, I'll throw it back over to you. Just again, at a high level, these are the three kind of pillars that we've seen. When they're in place, it leads to a more successful integration.
Yeah, so like they are very simple 3 points, which I've seen during the implementation period of this 9 customers data changes on demand, but they're actually valid for any implementation of anything in the world. So you need to have the right people on the project. If you don't have the right people on the project, you can get easily distracted or spend a lot of time on explaining items that you can skip that part. When it comes to the business case, the reason I gave you 3 different business cases is because with data changes on demand, you can just open your mind a bit more and just see different types of use cases that actually fit. You don't have to stick only to, I need to send all the data to my vendor. You may need specific items going to specific vendors. So that's why we have here the right business case. And the payroll ready tenant, of course. Why? Because you need to have the SKU, as Joanna said, the GPC SKU, and you need to have your tenant ready to be accessible by us, so we can extract the data. Yeah.
Okay. Well, with all of that said, we've talked it through. I think we hopefully now have all a better understanding of what DCoD is. But with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Andrew Hughes, who is going to take us on a live demonstration of what data changes in demand actually looks like from the user's perspective, and hopefully that can bring it to life for you, and you can see.
Excellent. Thanks, Ger. So in this demo, I'm going to show how data is transferred from Workday into the Payslip platform via the DCoD API. So we'll start off in this Workday environment, and we're going to navigate to an employee called Gail Bradley. Now, Gail is a new joiner to this fictional company, and we can see her profile here in Workday, that she is a program manager, she's based in London. We're just going to keep a mental note of some of the details here, like her employee ID. Just going to scroll down, see her phone number and her email address and so on. Now, Gail has gone through the whole HR onboarding process for an employee on the Workday side, but her details have not yet been sent to the Payslip platform, as we can see here. So how would we do that in Payslip? So I'm going to change here and go to the Payslip platform. So I've logged in as a global payroll analyst, and I'm responsible for processing payroll in all of these different pay groups that you can see here. So for example, in this UK entity with the headcount of 43, you can see the tasks that I'm responsible for executing at this point in the pay cycle on a monthly basis. So for example, here, action A1, It's my job to prepare the joiner and leaver data for all the UK employees in this entity. So let's do exactly that now. I'm going to mark this step as completed and hit save. So what is happening now? So in this UK payroll, we've set up DCoD to run upon action completion on this custom step A1. So we've triggered DCoD, and the Payslip platform is making a call to the Workday tenant. So what data are we actually retrieving? Well, all the joiner and leaver data. So for example, Gail Bradley in this case, but we'll also be retrieving any changes made in the profiles of any existing employees. So if there are changes, Payslip will load them. If there are no changes, Payslip will show a report saying that there are no changes in this case. And you might be asking, well, how else can we run this integration? So what you've seen there is we've triggered DCoD manually through a custom step in the Payslip workflow, but you can also schedule this integration. So to say 3 times per pay cycle, you could say on the 1st, 5th, and the 9th at 3 p.m. of every month, I want DCoD to run. So it can also be scheduled. You might be asking, can this integration be ran at any time? Well, you can't make an update to employee data at any stage in the payroll cycle. As you know, there are cutoff dates, and that's decided by you and your payroll partner. So once the inputs have been reviewed and approved, the payroll file will be locked, and that's depicted here with this icon. And this entity that we're currently working in, the payroll file, is unlocked, so it should be available for some changes. So let's check on the result of this DCoD integration, which was running in the background there. And for this UK entity, we see that the headcount has now grown from 43 to 44. So we had one new joiner, Gail Bradley. If we had 10 or 20 new joiners, we'd see that headcount go up by 10 or 20. So let's click on the files section of this UK entity. And we can see indeed that this Workday integration has ran. But where does the data actually live? It's in this pay run file. So we can see that Gail Bradley has now been included in this month's pay run alongside all of her other UK colleagues. So let's click on Gail Bradley, and we can see that a profile has been created for her in Payslip automatically thanks to the DCoD integration. There was no manual or duplicated work to be done. And all this data that you're seeing on the screen came from her Workday profile that we saw earlier. So her email address, her mobile number, and we can also see her ID as well under the job and orgs tab. So wonderful. That's how with one click you can run DCoD from the Payslip platform.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Andrew. The demo gods were smiling on you. Everything worked exactly as it should and as it always does. So that just, I suppose, brings it to life for you guys. I hope for those joining us that you can kind of see the efficiencies, the time saved. As Andrew mentioned, the fact that you have multiple options in terms of when it's scheduled, when it's run, either at a workflow stage or at specific points in the month, so that you're always catching the most up-to-date changes within Workday relevant to your payroll, and that information is getting onto your payroll provider. With that said, then, we might look ahead, look into our crystal ball, Joanna, and you can tell us what is on the roadmap for DCoD, because again, this is a great feature, but you guys in Workday and us here in our role in terms of the integration, it's continuing to build and continuing to add more functionality over the next 6, 12, 18 months.
Yes, of course. So I won't be going through all of them. I will be just highlighting a couple of them, especially the ones that I know that our customers are really, really waiting for. So December 2025, two data sections related to time and absence. One is the time off data section, and another is time tracking data section. So with this, we are actually full in terms of the data which is relevant for payroll. And next, field overrides, something that some of you may be familiar with, something from PECI, where we were allowing to send a section called additional data, where not only the, let's say, native fields from Workday, but also calculated fields could be sent. Our customers were highlighting that, and vendors also, that this is something that they need. So also in DCoD, we are planning to deliver this functionality late 26 R1, beginning 26 R2. So probably around March 2026, this feature should be available. And yeah, it should make a lot of vendors and customers and implementers very happy.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Okay, well, thank you all so much, the three of you, for joining and sharing your individual area of expertise. I'll leave the floor open for any more questions that come in, but I know we've taken a few as we've gone along as well, so I won't over egg the pudding either. But just to say, I suppose, the final call to action, you've got some options in terms of how you want to proceed. Please reach out to your Workday account manager if that's the way you'd like to go about it. And of course, reach out to us as payslip.com as well. We're very happy to take you through some of the insights and the learnings that we've seen over the last few months in terms of DCoD. A question in there from Sagar. DCoD is for data to move from Workday to Payslip platform. How does the data move from the Payslip platform to third-party vendors? What is the integration method? Steffi, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, thank you, Gerard. Yes, so basically what Payslip is providing as a solution is the standard payroll file, which is containing all the employee data in a standardized way. Usually our vendors, your vendors are using our platform because they have a separate portal where they can see all of this data. In case of a need, like where the vendor is having their own template, we have another integration which is called MOPI. That's how we call it internally, and it's a multi-output payroll integration. So with it, we are taking the template of your vendor and we are adapting our data from the Payslip site to the template of your vendor. That's how it is happening.
Yeah, see, yeah, there's a couple of options for you there, Sagar. Great question. And I suppose more into the weeds of how our platform itself operates. But yeah, feel free to get in touch, Sagar, if you want more information on just how we go about things and sort of that, you know, there's a other end of the scale, the data in, but also the data out, as you correctly noted, is obviously very important as well. Um, okay, with all of that said, we'll draw a line under it today. Thank you all very much for joining us. As we always say in these things, we never take it for granted that you guys have taken time out of your day to join us on this webinar. So we really do appreciate it. And of course, my thanks to my three experts for joining us. We will see you on the next one. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.